Hi there.
Hello.
Hello. You want to take your color, or I can do that if you want. I can describe you or vice versa.
I'm sorry, I think I didn't hear your sentence dropped in and out. If you all want to add your names to the participants on the HackMD meeting notes, that would be great. The link is in the calendar invite, and also I can drop it in our chat while we're waiting for others to join. Thank you. Fatih, do we have any outstanding action items? I can't tell from the meeting notes. It seems like they're all taken care of.
Yeah, I looked action items as well, and I couldn't find any. I suppose one of the obvious things we discussed during the previous meeting was how to collaborate with SPDX, which we haven't put any action item. I thought we can talk about it when the topic comes, I suppose.
I'm sorry, did you say follow up with SPDX?
Yeah.
Is this follow up from their presentation?
Yeah, because like, again, I think Steve suggested that we, instead of us trying to start things from scratch, we should perhaps look at what SPDX has, find the gaps and overlaps and focus on those things rather than us writing things ourselves.
Right, and if we want, they're starting, SPDX is starting their version 3, I think, or they're pretty far along, but they're more than willing to have us bring the CICD needs to their group. And when we do that, they'll go ahead and, if it makes sense, they'll adjust their model, bring it in, and then they will update it through the ISO. So I think it's a good way for us to get a stronger standard as part of that.
Yeah, maybe since we start talking about this, is it okay we move standardizing as the next topic, because I think we should continue talking about this rather than just talking about action items. So one thing I want to check, like I've been browsing through the presentation page shared during the previous meeting. It's like, it was pretty interesting during the meeting as well, but I become even more interested to what they are doing. So I am wondering, like, if anyone wants to, help out with this, so we can extract some information from their specification and then put it on our document, so to make others' lives easier when they browse the document by highlighting the relevant pieces.
Yeah, I think we should pick an area to focus on, and then cross-link it over to the SPDX, reference to SPDX. Maybe, start like an artifact, or, just something really basic, and start there and then just keep on building on it.
Exactly. So I volunteer for that. Anyone wants to join me?
I will join you, and I'm wondering how we should do it. If we should do it through a GitHub issue or a discussion, and then once we get far enough along, then do a PR, or do the PR first, and then, you know, keep on adding on to it that way.
Well, we never tried GitHub discussions, but I think events group are using them heavily. Maybe we can give GitHub discussions a try, because like if like based on discussions, we can turn the, you know, whatever comes out of that discussion on the GitHub discussion or issue, can turn that into a pull request perhaps.
Yeah, I think that's how the events are doing it. They'll have a discussion going, and then the discussion may be around a PR, you know, and then they would have the discussion on the threads because it's a little bit easier to follow on the discussion side. And then once they're happy, like at a meeting like this, they'll go ahead and kind of merge things, say we're kind of done with this discussion. Let's go ahead, and somebody would go ahead and update the PR with the details, kind of comb through the discussion board and update the PR with with what was decided upon. That's kind of how they're doing it.
Okay, then we should follow their example. I don't see our repo has discussions enabled. So we can enable that and then start a discussion topic there, and then take it from there then.
That sounds like a plan.
Okay.
And I would, I would throw out just, you know, just to have you start the topic, you know, pick something from SPDX that we should review, and then start the discussion around it. So I'm indifferent on what you pick. You know, whatever seems the easiest would be my suggestion. Because their model can be pretty complex.
I think action item. So select areas.
Yeah, this is all the relationship. So if you go back to that car, go to number 3, like package information or file information on the left there. See what's in that group there. Files analyzed. Yeah, that's that. Try file information. The next one down, number 4. This may be a good one to start with, Fatih, is the file information. Because it talks about artifacts and things like that.
Okay, I added that note as well. Action item. Can you put the link to this page on that action item, please? So
sure.
Yeah, because like when I look at our standardized metadata documents, like it's kind of we are reinventing the wheel here by trying to come up with some definitions and so on, and attributes.
And I think that's going to be one key point that we need to make sure that when we are looking through this, that we highlight, somehow we annotate that this particular, for lack of a better word, object is missing in SPDX, and it makes sense for SPDX to adopt the object that we find that's missing from a CI/CD perspective. And when we do that, we can then go to their meeting and say, this is what seems to be missing in your definition. Here's why, so they can look at including it.
So the goal is greater conformity between the SPDX spec and the metadata categories that we're developing.
That's my viewpoint on it. You know, instead of, you know, I hate redoing something that somebody has already put, 10 years worth of work.
Yeah.
You know, if we can leverage it, I think the better off that we'll be. And in the long run, the SPDX, SPDX originally started around just figuring out a standard for the licenses that were included in software. And that's what they originally were focused on, was just trying to find the licenses. And from there, it evolved into copyrights. And then it just kept on going and building upon that, that level of detail. So you'll see a lot in the spec that has to do with licenses and copyrights. But there's also a lot of attributes that have built upon that overlap into the CI/CD world.
Nice. Should we look at standardized metadata on that note?
Yeah, so because I put together some of the metadata around what is a git commit, what is an artifact, and I think we may need to kind of adopt these. We'll have to see if some of this, like what they consider a commit over on the SPDX side, if that exists or not. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, it would probably be in that file section.
Yeah, tend to take a look.
Okay. Yeah, there's file checksum.
Yeah.
I have a question to you, Steve. Like, I haven't read the file yet, but I'm not sure if they have this type of, like, I don't know, classifications of different types of artifacts, or they consider all of them as file, under file, or?
Well, that's where we have to do the investigation and see. I have not read the file, all the specs on the SPDX side around artifacts. And it does not look like they are at this level, at the file level, that they're including a commit at this level, maybe up at package. If they have the package checksum, but I don't think that's going to be the commit. So I think this is like the checksum of let's say you have a Node.js package that is going to be the checksum of that package that's going to be utilized. So it looks like just from a quick look here, like the git commit or a commit is not referenced back in the SPDX. That would be something that we'd probably want them to add an attribute for, because it would make sense from, when you're way downstream that what was the commit for this this change in the package.
I guess the closest thing is in 3.12 source information, but that doesn't really specify a commit. But
exactly.
So we can probably add on some things here.
Yeah, especially when we're coming at it from a different viewpoint. Like I said, their viewpoint originally was around licensing, so we think more about runtime environments. So yeah, I think this would be this section here, 3.12, where And it may even be at the other one at the file level. It's hard to tell where it would fit better. Probably at the package level, because this would be a result of the, if you're going to create, let's say you're going to create a Python module and you're going to push it to PyPy, that you actually would do, you go through a build step of creating the, basically the setup file. And at that point, you're going to be uploading it to PyPy through Twine, that would be where you'd be triggered by a commit in a CI/CD world. You know, this is I just made a change to my Python code. Now I'll go ahead and package it up and push it to PyPy. That would be driven by a commit, which would fit into this 312 area. And I would imagine there would be something similar for like a Golang. You know, when you go to publish a module for Golang, that you go through a similar process. And same with Node.js. But the one thing you do have to remember is when they are talking about packages, when we get into the container world, there you'll have multiple packages installed in a container. So, you know, when you do a hello world for Node.js, you get 1,500 packages that get installed by default. And each one of these would be conforming to have a 312 section for each one of those packages. So when we talk about artifacts at a container level, we would be actually referring to a list of SPDX packages.
When Kate talked about, when presented SPDX, she talked about other frameworks and so on that were checking up to be conformant against. Was she mentioning in Toto, or was that somewhere else we mentioned that one?
I think that's further down in their spec. I'm trying to remember where that. I don't recall where. I remember her talking about that in her presentation, but I can't remember where it was referenced in the spec. Because there's a whole section about relationships in section 7, I think. Yeah. So this is building out their data model. And I think their data model pretty much takes care of all the relationships. I mean, it's pretty well, you know, lays out a many-to-many relationship, you know, all the different permutations. It seems pretty good at this level. So I think all we need to do is add in the missing pieces that we're looking for from a CI/CD world, like the build tools there, the test tool. That information is stuff that can come or will come from the CI/CD pipeline. The thing that's missing, like in this relationship, I just see off the top of my head is like a reference to the build tool itself, you know, whether it's Jenkins or if it was TeamCity or, you know, cloud build. It seems to be a little more low level, like right here when they're talking about a make file, that's going to be more at the low level compile aspect.
Yeah, I would say that this is, I mean, probably from its history, what it was engaged with. It's really this process of releasing a new version of a library or something. It's very different than, or different enough, I guess, significantly different from CICD for a code base, you know? So this is what our focus is, bridging that gap in Terminal. Yeah.
Look at what's the external repository? It's section 6, appendix 6. Appendix 6, yeah. If that is persistent ID. Oh, okay. I know what they're referring to. They're trying to reference the repository where the artifact was pushed to after it was built. Okay. So I would say that we just pick a spot to start with and just kind of, you know, see where we can find what's in common. And in fact, it might be easier to just pick something on the SPDX side, and instead of taking it from the CI/CD side, just pick like the file or a package and start there and see how we can overlay it into the pipeline and see what common terminology there is from that world. May be easier.
Yep. But yeah, looking from that side to see how it translates to our world, kind of thing, you know.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Okay, I enabled the discussions thing on our repo, so and we can start a discussion on file information as you suggested, Steve, and then put links from the spec there, and then, you know, see where we end up, because this is like, yeah, it's pretty relevant to what we are doing, as well as like what events group is doing. Even if this doesn't end up being anything, it is good for, you know, knowing what the other communities are discussing. But I believe, like, based on what I heard from Kate, they are pretty open to, you know, contributions from, you know, others who are more focused on specific things such as CI/CD stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We have an opportunity there. And as you said, like, they are working on third version of the spec, which seems to be a perfect timing for us to go and somehow take part in that discussion.
Yeah, and even if we start simple, like, you know, just defining a, you know, asking them to add one attribute like a git commit to their spec and see what the process is for them to adopt it. You know, see how much work it is to just get something simple like that added to their spec. Maybe worth the exercise.
Yeah. Yeah.
Excellent. So you good. So you both know your next steps, and that's very good. Great. So I guess we'll review our next meeting and see how it's going. Does that sound good?
Yep.
Okay. Anything else we need to discuss on standardized metadata? Was there additional discussion for that needed? Anything we needed to review or discuss together?
I think Steve talked about these parts during one of the previous meetings. So
yeah. Okay. IEEE standard for DevOps. Standard is available.
May I share my screen? Because I have
yes, please do.
Yeah. So this, I think I sent a message to our Slack channel a few weeks ago when I first heard about this. I hope you can see page now, the standard page. And then I noticed they had a webinar last Wednesday, I think, and I joined that webinar, and Terry was there as well. And we both listened to the webinar, and we asked a few questions. Like I asked, like how much they talked about, how much they engage with open source communities, and they kind of skipped that question. And then Terry, I think, had some comments about tools, technologies adopting the standard and so on. And there were some other questions, such as like why standard is paywalled, which will kind of, you know, become an issue when it comes to adoption. But there wasn't satisfying answers to those questions. And I downloaded the standard, so I don't know if I am doing something illegal here, but I just want to show the table of contents. Yeah, I read the standard. It was kind of a refresher for me. As you see here, this is a table of contents. It talks about processes, activities, tasks, outcomes, and so on. So it wasn't a waste of time for me, but maybe, you know, for some people who know these things better than me, they may quickly browse this through. But that is my reflection of the webinar and the standard itself. And Terry, you want to talk about your own reflections on this?
So yeah, we had a discussion about this over in the best practices SIG as well. My concerns were from the presentation that they gave. They started the presentation by really asking the question, what is DevOps and why do we do it? And nobody on the working group seemed to actually be able to answer that question. And there were a lot of things discussed that were quite concerning from my perspective. There were phrases thrown around like waterfall DevOps and DevOps for mainframes. So it felt quite a long way away from, you know, the reality of, you know, what we do DevOps for. So I have reached out to the team and have been asked to join the next working group. So I will get a bit more involved and try and understand what they're trying to do with this and where they're going with it. I haven't had a chance to read the specification yet, but it feels like it's trying to redefine DevOps to align with what people are doing in sort of corporate structures where they struggle to actually have the agility to do DevOps. So I'd be interested to understand whether that's coming across in the standard itself or whether the standard is adhering to, you know, what we actually need from DevOps.
When I was reading, like I've seen some sentences about mainframes and so on, and waterfall DevOps type of stuff as well in the standard as well. But at the same time, I've seen some of the things we have actively been discussing within this group and other groups. So it's like mix of, I felt like it's mix of both worlds, like neither this nor that type of, you know, feeling I get. But I maybe.
Yeah, it's funny that they're talking about mainframe because there's a mainframe source control tool called Endeavor, and it's spelled without the U. And the reason why it's spelled the way it is because it means an environment for development and operations. So it's actually the first DevOps tool that was built back in the early 80s, where you can check in, compile, and ship your code out automatically. So the mainframe has been doing DevOps since the 80s. Just the distributed side thinks that they're geniuses in coming up with it.
Yeah, for the most part, to me, it's always seemed that the term DevOps has been an attempt to trendify a return to how we used to do systems administration back before colleges started churning out a bunch of people who did not really combine the disciplines of systems operations and software development.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, this is what I want to highlight on this. Okay, but yeah, to see perspectives of this group as well, and it maybe for us to somehow bridge the gap between the community perspectives and STO perspectives. And straight Terry, you reached out to them. I think of doing the same as well. See what the response will be. Okay, that was all about this topic, I suppose. Yeah, back to you, Farah.
You can keep going.
Okay. So while I have the screen sharing, I can show the policy-driven CI/CD updates. So as you know, this was another topic we started talking about beginning of this year and so on. And there have been updates since we last looked at this document, and I just want to highlight that during this meeting. So one of the updates was from Ravi from Harness, and he talks about how they approach to policy. And the other thing was from Cameron, actually. He included more information about the Armory flavor of Spinnaker and their support of Open Policy Agent. And what I want to highlight now is simply there is some kind of convergence around Open Policy Agent, which is like kind of good to see. At the same time, I also start seeing lots of webinars from various companies such as like Opsimics, Armory, and Harness talking about their approach to policy. It's kind of, that made me feel we may have contributed those webinars to start happening after each other, because like those, like they are contributors to Continuous Delivery Foundation and our group as well. So we kind of get people start talking about the topic more and finally helping us to see the trend like Open Policy Agent, which makes me think we should perhaps try reaching out to Open Policy Agents community to see what they are seeing from their side. Because like I don't see it in like many things happening in Jenkins community, but I think Kara, you put this here saying that there is interest within Jenkins community to support Open Policy Agent, but we get some kind of alignment in policy area from communities that would help a lot to end users. That's what I've been struggling to come to that point, but that's what I'm trying to summarize. So any of you have any contacts in Open Policy Agent community? Any friends?
None on my side.
I could reach out through linked people to people who know people at Styra. I could try and reach out. This is short.
Yeah, if you could do that, because like if we can bring someone from Open Policy Agent OPA community here, they can have a chance to talk to, you know, the CICD community members here and see if they have any difficulties when they are working with Open Policy Agent and what they are aiming to, and hear plans of OPA community. So it's kind of, you know, bridging the gap. And as an end user, I can also see, you know, how can I bring these discussions to, you know, my organization or others. I am talking about policy as well. As you may remember, Tracy was talking about end user council plan, and governance is an area for end user council to look at before. But we could somehow contribute to that work as well. That would benefit everyone, not just communities, but also users.
Do you want to put a link in the notes, and then we can all take a look? Maybe you have.
Or the end user plan, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, user council.
Or the work you've done so far on I guess governance and policy compliance.
Okay, yeah. The link is in the minutes actually.
Oh, perfect. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. For the work that you're doing in the end user community.
Yeah, I will put, yeah.
Sweet. End user council.
Yeah, this is also related to broader, you know, CDF strategic goals. Like one of the goals in the CDF governing board strategic goals is to increase participation from end users. And you know, if we could, you know, show that we are working on end user concerns, it hopefully increases participation from end user organizations. How to bring these different things together. That was all I want to highlight. So please, if any of you can take a look at the document and see any questions, comments, you can highlight those things to communities, because this is also, I think it's a good document talking about different community aspects. And we should perhaps bring some more input from end users like Fidelity and others into this document to see what they are dealing with. And while I am here, can I action you about OPA contact?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, that was all I want to say. Yeah.
Fatih, the end user council is open to all CI/CD end users. What group are we aiming for? Is there any restrictions on that?
Yeah, when I was reading the end user council chart or this page, it says CDF end user council is open to leadership teams from CDF end user members and guest organizations. So if like people are from a member end user company, they can join to this council. But if they are not from a member company, they can request an invitation by reaching out to Tracy and join the meetings.
Okay, and presumably part of our wider set of networks and communities and users of our own products, we might want to invite them to engage with the end user council and help facilitate their joining.
I'd love to be able to join those the end user council meetings, but they are smack dab in the middle of our daily stand-ups that I have with 2 different teams every day. And I've reached out to Tracy to find out, can we, you know, I don't know, can we change that somehow to some other time? And just haven't gotten back. I'll tell you, the only reason I'm able to attend this meeting is because it happens at 8 a.m. my time. And at 9 a.m., I have stand-ups all the way till 11 o'clock with 2 different teams. So yeah, can't be at 2 places at the same time.
Well, we can, I thought you, or you said you already reached out to Tracy. I don't know if you want reminder or, because this, I was joining these meetings and it hasn't happened since, I think it was 2 months ago, last meeting. And John Mark Walker, I think he also changed his job, which may have, you know, kind of slowed down the progress with the end user council, which may be a good time now to take a look at the calendar and change the meeting day time. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, just let me know if you want help pushing the change of time.
I can reach out again to Tracy to see if that's possible.
Yeah.
Frankly, I value the work that we do here a lot more, only because we are not just bringing in the different open source projects, but also the end users are also here as well. So the need I would have for an end user council, frankly, is not as much as it is what we do here. I hear from both commercial and open source maintainers in this forum, as well as the end users in this forum, and I really don't see much of a need for a separate end user council, but that's just me.
Maybe I can add something on top based on another community I was part of. I was heavily engaged in one of the Linux Foundation networking projects with the name of Open Platform for Network Functions Virtualization. And in that community and broader Linux Foundation networking community, there is this end user council as well. And the way that council works is they simply put requirements on communities and vendors to have some kind of standardized approach to the solutions either communities are building or the vendors are offering. And maybe end user council in CD context, CD Foundation context could take a similar approach to this, and instead of only talking about what problems are, they can also talk about what they expect from communities and vendors, kind of providing some kind of direction. And again, from Linux Foundation networking, there are programs called like conformance programs, and I think Jeremy OpenStack has also some kind of conformance program, which heavily takes input from end user organizations. So whatever products or solutions available out there, benchmark themselves against what comes from end user organizations in the form of test cases and so on. Maybe, I don't know if running this type of approach makes sense or not. That is what was done by communities.
Was that a question?
Yeah, I was talking about OpenStack conformance or maybe.
So it's, there are interoperability guidelines that that are required for deployments to be able to make use of the project trademarks in any official sense. So if a public cloud provider or distributor of the software wants to be able to say that this is OpenStack powered or whatever, then they have to perform tests against the deployment and submit test results to the Open Infrastructure Foundation for vetting, and then that gets added to a database of test results that that the foundation uses to check against for people trying to make use of the trademarks in an official capacity for commercial purposes.
And the relation between that program and I think does Open Infra Foundation have some kind of end user council as well? I suppose it does.
Certification program, the OpenStack Certified Administrator.
Okay, and it has participation from end users as well then.
Yeah, that's administrative and interface certification program for people who want to basically be able to take tests to prove that they're proficient in using the software.
Like if I must speculate here, like let's just speculate and CD Foundation comes up with some kind of badge saying that this like project or product is conformant with CD Foundation guidelines or whatever interoperability thingy, then that kind of approach could perhaps make end users more engaged in the discussions, you know,
maybe
providing input. Yeah.
So probably the closest thing I can think of to that in recent history is the Core Infrastructure Initiative. They did a lot of work, particularly around project security practices, and you know, allowed projects to be able to provide information on what they were doing, and then get confirmation that, you know, they met this particular set of guidelines, and they could publish a badge for that or whatever with their project. So like, if I understand what you're suggesting, projects that develop or companies that develop CI systems CI and CD systems could basically provide some sort of details that indicate that the software they produce or the systems that they deploy or whatever are conformant with the CD Foundation interoperability guidelines, and then be able to display a badge to that effect on their web pages or whatever.
Yeah, that was my thing. Because again, if I go to Linux Foundation Networking, that's exactly what that Linux Foundation Networking conformance program provides. Like if you pass this set of test cases, you are, you know, allowed to use Linux Foundation Networking conformance program logo as part of your marketing or as part of your community thingy, like how you describe core infrastructure initiative. So maybe that would be something to get, you know, interest from end users to be more active.
Yeah, and I think the Core Infrastructure Initiative reworked itself in the last year or so as the Open Source Security Foundation, still under the Linux Foundation, but I think they're still maintaining something similar to the CII conformance programs. So they're probably still a pretty effective example to model something after for the CDF, I would think.
I mean, does this type of approach, you know, does it, you know, would it be beneficial? Like if, like, as an end user, I am also from an end user organization. Would seeing this type of, you know, badge from like CD Foundation or other communities help you to, you know, make easier decision when it comes to selecting different technologies?
Not sold on that. The types of decision making that go into the factors, I should say, that go into the decision making when we're picking things, frankly, doesn't really include, you know, is this ratified by certain group. What really comes into play is, does it meet our use case? Will it solve our problem? Who's maintaining it? Do we have to maintain it? Is it open source? Is it commercial? Do we have to pay for it? And things of that sort. The fact whether or not it's been ratified by any open source community only adds to it, but meaning it's a lower down the priority, way lower down the priority than the other factors. So it has some effect, but not. Frankly, if something's massively ratified by any community, but it doesn't meet your requirements, it won't solve your problem, and frankly, you have to end up maintaining it, or whatever the case is. It's the badge. That kind of a badge won't help pick it, but it might help.
Yeah, but again, another example coming from telco industry is benefits as well, not challenges. The thing is, what we are seeing is when it comes to all these 5G open radio networks and so on, what we are seeing is many communication service providers are asking for compliance to certain open source community specifications, such as open network automation platform and so on, and lately or an open run type of stuff. And maybe this is difference between the domains like telecom infrastructure versus CICD infrastructure or tooling. Maybe, yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean they do that because what ends up happening is that they want to be able to create systems that truly interoperate based on implementations of a spec. I'm huge into video surveillance. I in a past life, I actually worked for a company that created video surveillance software, network NVRs and cameras and all that. The ONV IF, which I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but it is an open standard for network security cameras and network video. They created this thing, and the entire industry just ran towards it. Why? Because it meant that if they implemented against this spec, they could interoperate with thousands of different, with whoever else that also implemented to this spec. So it had huge value for them to have that badge and say, my camera is ONVIF capable. And so if your network video recorder can scan, find, and operate with ONVIF cameras, it doesn't matter what I do. As long as it's able to do that, you're good to go. And then you can interoperate with all these things. So if we come up with something like that, then yes, having a badge of CDF interoperability badge would be a huge value. But first we have to find the use case for that. That would be of value for people to want to interoperate in that way or implement to it. Does that make sense?
Yes, makes a lot of sense to me.
So yeah.
Because again, I think what you talked about, this camera network stuff, it is what's been happening in telco industry for decades. It's all about interoperability with all these different vendors and products coming from each of these vendors, and making sure those products those systems can interoperate with each other. Otherwise, like it's a lot of mess because
That's right.
can't simply, you can't bring different things from different vendors because of lack of interoperability, and that actually enables operators to pick and choose, and vendors to be able to get more business because their products interoperate with other vendor products.
Can you imagine Wi-Fi without 802.11? Yeah. I can't. there is no way that laptop manufacturers and phone manufacturers, you got to stick to you want to be able to hook up to an access point, 802.11. That is now the law of the land. It wouldn't have happened without it.
Yeah. And maybe this could be something, to think about. Like, I'm not saying like, because we don't have any standards or any specification or anything yet, but maybe this could be something to get, again, the reason why I started talking about this topic originally is like how to get more engagement from end user organizations, because like some of those end user organizations, they take part in end user council, but they are not really active in these type of groups like interoperability or events groups. So to increase the participation and get some more conversation going on, as you said, Ramin, like this type of meetings and groups help us to talk to maintainers, vendors, and whatever, to push things forward, and everybody wins in the end. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I can totally see the interoperability, CDF interoperability, SIG, setting down a set of standards, not just one set of standards that has to do with making CICD easier to do, better, more quality. I can totally see us, for example, if we declare that OPA is it when it comes to policy-driven CICD, that's it. That is the thing we're rallying around. And by adhering to OPA, meaning you have a system that uses OPA for its policy-driven stuff, you are now part of the interoperability umbrella, if you will. Maybe, therefore, you get to show a badge that you are part of this community and you're adhering to standards that we've ratified. Things of that sort might have some value. It might show to people, like if I see a CDF interoperability badge, I may immediately assume that, oh, okay, you must be using OPA because they've ratified that. Things of that sort might have some value.
Yeah. Yeah, now you put ideas in my head. Thanks for
yeah, and at the same time, oh, I see the interoperability badge. Oh, you must be using SPDX for your metadata. You see, so yeah. we can be the coalescer, if that's a word, of a few different specs, industry-wide specs that solve real world, that aim at solving real world problems. That's just some ideas.
Yeah, I already took notes. I will rewatch the meeting recording to remember things. But yeah. Thanks a lot, Jeremy, Ramin, for these inputs, because this is at least in my organization, we are struggling with because we use more than one CICD tool or technology as part of our CICD pipelines, and Matthias here, and he is well aware of that, and that's why we came up our way of addressing these things. But if something that comes out from community efforts that could help everyone. Perhaps, you know, we instead focus on our business rather than fixing CI/CD issues.
Excellent. And with that, I'm sorry, I have to run off.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
All right then.
Well,
Bye.
See you guys next time.
Thank you for being here,
Thank
including
you.
the end users.
Sure thing.
Good additions.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, Kara left as well, but yeah, Matthias, Jeremy, if you are still here, thanks a lot for joining today. So it was like kind of sudden drop of people.
Quick question.
Yeah.
What happened to the white paper?
Oh, that's a good question. This will be a topic for next meeting. Thanks for reminding, Matthias.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks a lot again, Matthias, Jeremy, and talk to you next time in 2 weeks.
Yep.
Thank you.
Talk to you.